Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and once again, I am joined by my friend Jose Lopez. What's up, Jose?
Hey, how's it going, Patrick?
Good. And this episode is actually part 2 of an episode about comparing the top 5, in my opinion, the top 5 players from the 2020 draft versus the top 5 players in the 2021 draft. Now, if you haven't checked it out, we did part 1, which covered Cade Cunningham versus LaMelo Ball, Jalen Green versus Anthony Edwards, and Evan Mobley versus our man, James Wiseman. It was a really, really thorough episode. I was like, dang, this is we need more sponsors for this. But no, that was a lot of fun. And actually, the thing that I found funny was that we kind of picked the same dudes, which is fine, which is totally fine. But I'm like, oh, okay. Hopefully this makes for good audio. We need more argumentation. No, but that's cool. We're gonna pick up where we left off. So another pair of guards, and I put Jalen Suggs and Tyrese Haliburton together because they're both about the same size in terms of height. Suggs obviously is like stronger. Haliburton's really wiry and skinny, but they're both combo guards. They can both play on ball, play off ball. And out of these two, who you got?
For me, it's pretty clearly Suggs. I'm probably a little bit, biased just because of, his performance in the tournament and seeing those kind of leadership qualities manifest themselves, on the floor. But he had some pretty nice moments there. But yeah, I just think he's, I think the draft capital point, is really salient with him. He's one of those guys who, obviously went top 5, not always like a good shorthand, because I think if we were to do a redraft, I think Haliburton definitely goes, much higher in a redraft today. But, I do think that sometimes it speaks to, the physical skill set and the way that the market of, kind of basketball heads, how they see your game. And so he just seems like to me like somebody who will be better as a first option and would be able to run your offense and, just be kind of comfortable in that leadership position. I see Haliburton as similar in the sense that they're both like very NBA ready, stepping into the NBA as rookies, like ready to play in the NBA and contribute, good minutes right away. But I do think like Haliburton, I always think of him as more of a supporting cast member, like maybe the best seen as like a second or third option, not kind of leading the offensive charge for your team. So I think for that reason, even though I like both of these players a lot, they're both kind of, seem like good leaders, seem like, just solid heads on their shoulders. Really like how they, spread the ball around, really like them on the defensive end, like people who clearly, take pride and care about defense. And so I love both these players, but just in terms of the raw skills, I got to give it to Suggs on this one.
I think at this point, it's pretty obvious to me that you take Suggs. I came up with this idea of, comparing 2020, 2021 draftees towards the end of the season. And at that point, Suggs was still like, he was on that Gonzaga team where he was the freshman. He didn't have to do everything all the time. And then he had that great tournament. But what kind of put it over for me, and I know it's just summer league, and again, all the caveats about this being early and kind of just a fun mental exercise. What I saw from Suggs in summer league was that star quality, and I put him and Haliburton together because they both seem to have that leadership and those intangibles, right? Like they just know how to play. They just make a team better. And since then, it's been clearer that Jalen Suggs is more of that star player, whereas Haliburton is like, he's more of kind of late career Warriors Iguodala type
Mm-hmm.
to me. I see him as kind of an Iguodala Livingston combo in that respect. Whereas you look at Suggs and you put the ball in his hands, you definitely give him the last shot every game. To me, at this point, no question. Like if somebody said, "Hey, you have Jalen Suggs, we'll give you Tyrese Haliburton," that's not
Oh
happening.
yeah.
You know what I mean? In all the Ben Simmons trade talks, the hypothetical stuff with, oh, the Sixers, would you trade Ben Simmons and Tyrese Haliburton and whatever, Bagley and Harrison Barnes or whatever? Sixers fans would be like, nah, man. But if it was Suggs instead,
Yeah.
oh yeah, they would take that,
Oh,
right?
totally.
Like so, to me, like it's pretty obvious that it's Jalen Suggs at this point. As much as I am a Tyrese Haliburton fan, I don't think he could be the best player on a contending team, a playoff team. Whereas Jalen Suggs, he potentially could be
Mm-hmm.
for a playoff team for sure. Maybe not a contending team, but for a
Mm-hmm.
playoff team. Well, that one was easy.
I guess I thought Cade was easy too. But yeah, that one, it just seems to me like Halliburton, we see him a certain way because he was always, oh, he should really go higher, but no one's gonna take him, top eight, top whatever. And
Yeah,
that opinion was confirmed.
yeah,
Um, but it's just like just the physical tools. Like there's a reason that, he fell a little bit because people just felt like, man, am I really, drafting this guy 5, 6 or whatever with that toolbox and Suggs. It's like, there's I'm sure anybody, in that top five, wouldn't have hesitated to pull the trigger on him. It's like, probably a little bit crazy to take him over Cade, but after that, like I think a lot of those top five guys were pretty interchangeable in a way.
yeah.
But I don't think, to use that thought exercise of, Halliburton in this class, I don't think he sniffs at that conversation.
Like I said, when I came up with this, like it was all the Halliburton hype second half of the season, and I hadn't seen Suggs play that much or seen as many highlights. I hadn't studied him as closely. It's funny, right? Because I used to say this thing where last season, this trade was never on the table, as far as I know. So Halliburton, I mean, he was on a lot of people's lists as, going to be drafted anywhere from 4 to 6, four
Mm-hmm.
to eight, and people were saying like he was the surprise of last year's draft, but not really. Like people who paid attention knew he was going to be good. It was actually a surprise that he
Yeah, totally.
fell,
I'm with
you
you.
know, and 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 I don't know if it's because of his frame or whatever, but the kid can definitely play. But I had tossed this out last last season. Again, it wasn't a real thing. It was something I made up, but it was like, oh man, last season. Okay, I'll ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Last season on draft day, if you could have traded the Minnesota pick for Tyrese Haliburton, would you have done it? So you would have gotten Wiseman and Haliburton.
Yeah, I think, not knowing what the pick would become, I would probably take that deal,
Yeah,
especially after you're seeing how Halliburton played and just how well he would fit into this team, to this Warriors team.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting thought exercise too. But I mean, if you redraft 2020 now, I would say most people would say Halliburton over Wiseman, right? So I'm not sure you and I would say that because we're both Wiseman stands, but yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's he's in the if not like second or third pick conversation, he's definitely in that top 4 or 5 conversation in terms of who folks would take,
right.
if you could do the draft over.
If the Kings said we'll give you Tyrese Haliburton for Jonathan Kuminga, do you think they would do it?
I think just in terms of timelines and how he fits into the team on both sides of the ball, I think they do it. Yeah,
Would you do it?
I would do it. I mean, and I love Kuminga, but I think it's a timeline play there. I think is
Yeah,
Kuminga's ceiling, higher, much higher than Halliburton's. Yes. Is it like exponentially higher? Like they should never be on the same court together? I don't think so. But which timeline fits better with this
yeah.
Warriors team? Like, give me Halliburton.
I mean, that's going to bring us to next one, but I think I would have to definitely look at that and probably pull a trigger. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm a huge Kuminga stan at this
Yeah,
point.
same here, man.
Haliburton, I mean, he's no slouch, right? Like, even though we picked Suggs easily over him, but man, Haliburton would be perfect on this Warriors team, you know? So if that's a question of like fit and youth, you might have to go with it. Somebody who could help you win now, like 100% for sure, versus waiting. But anyway, that brings us to the fifth position on this roster. And this is a little bit different from the previous four. I got three players in mind here, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like at the kind of small forward, wing, power forward position, I have from 2020, Patrick Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the 2021 draft, I have both Scottie Barnes and Jonathan Kuminga, because Kuminga was a consensus number 5 pick for most of last season. And this is obviously a Golden State Warriors podcast, so there's no way in hell we're not talking about Jonathan Kuminga.
Gotta talk Kuminga, yeah.
Jose, man, like out of those three, tell me who you would pick for your team, why, and then, actually rank them 1 through 3.
Yeah, this is probably one of the trickier ones, not just because it's three players, but also just because I think this stage of each draft is a little bit where some guys who are maybe a little bit not off the radar, but weren't just consensus top five, specifically Scottie Barnes and Patrick Williams. I mean, Patrick Williams, if memory serves, he kind of shot up the kind of draft boards, just in the last few weeks. It felt like, and in his case, he wasn't starting at Florida State. He was coming off the bench. He was, one of those physical specimens that just felt like a little bit more of an unknown. And, I certainly hadn't watched a ton of him, and I just kind of heard in different news reports, oh, this guy might go, earlier than you think. And sure enough, he goes number 4. And that's where, given that we weren't picking at that point, I didn't really care with, what happened after the Wiseman pick. So I just kind of forgot about him a little bit. And then last season, I just was very impressed with his game. Very solid on the defensive end, able to really switch and play bigs, play smaller guys. And so, that part, as someone who really appreciates that side of the ball, that part really jumped out at me. And I felt like he had, some decent offensive moves as well, and probably contributed on a little bit more on that end of the floor that I was expecting. And I'd say, generally my impression was that he just not overperformed, but did a little bit more than someone like me who was expecting, who wasn't up on, non-starters on the Florida State team the year before. Right. So I came away being really impressed by him. And I think based on that, I rate him very, very highly. I don't know what was your impression of Patrick Williams kind of going in and his season.
He was the sleeper pick, I guess my sleeper pick before the 2020 draft. He was a name that for a while, as it was leading up to the draft, he was, I think, creeping into the top 10, or early teens or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at his position, his comps, some highlights, I was like, okay, this guy seems like he very much fits in the modern day NBA. And when he got picked 4th, I was like, wow, Chicago is really dumb. Because I was like, why didn't they take Haliburton? But I mean, there were dudes in that draft like who kind of just fell into this like, oh wow, they're very, very solid, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that's where Patrick Williams fell into,
Mm-hmm.
because he was coming off the bench, right? He wasn't a starter, right? Just like Scottie Barnes. But then when I finally saw him play in the NBA, I was like, oh, this guy knows how to play basketball.
Oh yeah.
I looked at his stats, not crazy. I mean, he scored 9 points a game, 9.2 or something, but he's a great shooter
Mm-hmm.
at this point. He won't be 20 until the season. And I like him. I mean, when I watched him play the Warriors last year, again, hyperbole, and anybody who's like anywhere from 6'6" to 6'8" who can do certain things, everybody's like, oh, that's like Kawhi, but I will admit, like I saw him and I was like, he has like a mid range like Kawhi already, a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and at age 19 going on 20, like that will certainly develop. So I like him a lot.
Nice, nice. I mean, should we talk about his former teammate, Scottie Barnes? They didn't actually play together, right? Because
No, I think
yeah,
they were freshmen and freshmen.
yeah,
Go for it. You're the guest. I'll let you have first at it.
yeah. I kind of saw Scottie Barnes in somewhat of the same way with the kind of climbing up the draft boards. At least in my mind, he wasn't like one of those top five guys, that we heard about for the year or two prior. But then, once I saw that he was starting to get, a lot more attention, a lot more hype, I started watching his game more closely and was similarly very, very impressed. And I think you kind of referenced that there's 50 baby Kawhis, every every draft, and even with rookies and younger players in the league. There's also this progeny of Draymond Green, and I would kind of see him as in that mold, and I think that's a comp that people use a lot, and I kind of see it. I also see some of the drawbacks in Draymond's game that exists with him. Not blown away by his shooting mechanics, by his shot, but he's just one of these guys that doesn't just play defense, but seems like he really thrives and enjoys putting the energy into that part of his game on that side of the floor. And with his physical profile, really good frame, in that same kind of size range that you're talking about, 6'6" to 6'8". I mean, I can see why you pick these guys to comp, not just because they're Florida State guys who kind of shot up, with the sleeper status late in the draft, but they're pretty similar players. I personally like Patrick Williams' offensive game a little bit better, at least in terms of the step I saw him take from college to playing on the Bulls. So I would probably rank him a little bit higher in my book, even just in terms of how he performed in his rookie season, which was really impressive to me. And we'll see how Barnes does, but I see them as kind of similar players in my book. Patrick Williams just a little bit more polished on the offensive end, and someone who's that much more interested in me. But what I would say is I love Barnes's landing spot a lot more, and I do think that Toronto will know what to do with him and will develop him probably in the right ways. I think the prospect of him playing alongside Siakam and kind of picking up some things from him potentially, I think just kind of breathing the same air and living in that same kind of part of the floor may be good for him as well. So I'm really excited about his rookie campaign coming up too.
I like Scottie Barnes. I also lean more Patrick Williams though because of the well-roundedness of his game. I can see Scottie Barnes being that guy. Like if he is a great orchestrator, a great point forward at 6'8", 6'9", however tall he is, that will be a sight to behold. But right now, if you're just talking like take somebody out of those two, I'm leaning Patrick Williams for sure right now because like the guy can shoot,
Yeah.
The guy can shoot and he can play D, like you were saying, and he's strong and he's just going to get stronger. He's not even like that well, built. He's not that muscular,
Yeah.
but his frame is definitely one of those frames where you can like, pack on some muscle.
Yeah.
And I like his demeanor. Who knows what Barnes' demeanor will translate to? Will he be like fiery like Draymond for all the pluses and minuses of that, or will his offensive game come around enough? With Patrick Williams, again, having like that sample size, you obviously know more about what he brings to the table. If Scottie Barnes could shoot a little bit better,
Yeah.
Then maybe it's a bigger question. But out of those two, I go Williams. Week 3 of football is in the books, and now it's time to review the tape and get ready for Week 4 with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off another action-packed week, DraftKings is giving new customers $150 instantly when they bet $1 on any football game. Head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and place a bet of $1 on any game this week to receive $150 free in bets instantly. If Sportsbook is not yet available in your state, DraftKings still has huge cash prizes up for grabs all season long with their daily fantasy contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code TBPN to receive $150 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's promo code TBPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only, new customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. So that takes us to the prize of the 2021 draft for us, Jonathan Kuminga versus, I'm assuming, Patrick Williams.
Yeah, that's how I would. Well, honestly, that's where this is interesting as a kind of 3-player analysis. I'd say my shorthand is Kuminga. To me, has the highest ceiling out of all these guys, just in terms of his physical profile and the tools that he has in the toolbox. But he's also by far, I think, the highest variance player out of these guys. He feels the most raw for sure. You know, in terms of the mental game, like you can see him have struggles with processing what's going on the floor sometimes, and just bad shots, bad decisions, bad passes, some stuff that, you know, it's clear that he didn't grow up playing, you know, super competitive, like well-coached basketball, you know, his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of shows. So I think the other side of that coin is, you know, going back to the sleeper or kind of shooting up draft boards nature of the Williams and Barnes paths compared to Kuminga. You know, Kuminga, if anything, fell a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah.
But was always seen as one of those, you know, not just top 5 kind of consensus, but coming into the season, probably having the chance to flirt with maybe the 2nd or 3rd spot on draft boards.
I think after his first G League Ignite game, he was at like number 1 or 2 for at least a couple weeks.
Yeah.
You know, on some boards, you know.
And so, you know, I put a lot of stock in that, right? I put a lot of stock in how do people look at, I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are all, you know, 18, 19. And in the case of Kuminga, he was 18 when drafted, right? So they're all super young. And at that kind of stage of your development, I think the tools and just what you bring in terms of just moldable clay really matters. And so that to me, you know, makes me probably the most excited about Kuminga out of the 3 of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, not to be a complete cop out here, but kind of what you're looking for. And in the case of, you know, the Warriors, for example, I would much rather have Patrick Williams on this team than Kuminga.
Yeah.
And I think I might even take Scottie Barnes, to be honest. But if I'm building a team, you're asking me to start a team from scratch. And, you know, I'm just trying to look for the best players to kind of throw together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking Kuminga.
Yeah.
Just because the tantalizing nature of that toolkit, the athleticism, the explosiveness, pretty good court vision, right? For you know, someone who's kind of moves through the court quickly and can get to the basket.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do like his, you know, ability to hit a cutter. So that playmaking and, you know, ball distribution, while raw, I think is something that's still very much capable of being developed in a positive way.
Yeah.
And just someone who, you know, out of the 3, I just like his ability to create his own shot the best. And
Kuminga's?
Yeah. I think so. It's just in terms of the offensive moves that he has access to and his athleticism and quickness, I think that'll translate really well. His stride is just super long, you know? And so it's just one of those, between that, his, you know, his play above the rim, I think he's going to be able to make space for his shot, for his offensive moves in a way that, I just haven't seen to quite the same degree with the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
But, the defensive side of the ball is something that's completely a wild card, in my opinion. Like you'll see him do, some chase down blocks, and then, you see him kind of being a little bit lackadaisical, a little bit, kind of lost or unengaged, disengaged on the defensive end, at least in the G League games that you would watch. And so, that part, is a little bit concerning, but I still think all things considered, you look at his frame, like you said, his ability to pack on to that frame. I think he can be a solid defender. I think he does have a good nose for the ball in terms of rebounding. And so, I think all those things together, I'm most excited about his toolbox. But, if you're asking me, hey, what's the best fit for the Warriors, or for someone who's actually trying to contend this year coming up, I probably wouldn't go with Kuminga, to be honest.
Yeah, you'd go with Patrick Williams. It's interesting because I studied so much on Kuminga. I would probably take Kuminga, but if in the same sense, like if the Bulls said, hey, we'll trade you Patrick Williams or Jonathan Kuminga straight up, I do that.
Done.
Because
Yeah.
because Williams is automatically in the rotation and he's helping you win games in like 20 minutes per game. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, totally.
and especially at his age, him and Wiseman developing with Poole and Moody, hypothetically, then he's not so much of a project as Wiseman is turning out to be. And he could give you so much, just like his 3-point shots solid so far, his mid range, his ability to cut off ball. And the thing about Williams versus Kuminga is it feels like Williams has more small man skills.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably better off the bounce, whereas Kuminga can obviously play bigger. I'm going to take Jonathan Kuminga because I just love the force that he plays with. And I love his energy. I love his vibe. I think he'll be a fan favorite.
I'll take Patrick Williams. It seems crazy in some ways, because I do think, like, just snapshot today, he's a better shooter, better defender. Like I said, I do see more promise in Kuminga being able to create his own shot.
Yeah.
But if we just say it today, those are two really important skills in today's NBA. And I do think Williams takes them on shooting and defending.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just something about that toolkit, man. Like I said, it's just that that athleticism that just piques your interest.
I guess I'm taking Kuminga.
Cool. I'll take Williams. I got Williams on my squad.
Okay.
and my squad will beat yours this year. You might be mine in a couple of years.
Yeah. So your team is Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, James Wiseman, Jalen Suggs, and Pat Williams. And then my team is Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, James Wiseman, Jalen Suggs, and Jonathan Kuminga. And then the team that you didn't pick is LaMelo Ball,
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Edwards, Evan Mobley, Tyrese Haliburton, and we'll say Jonathan Kuminga. Do you think your team could beat that team?
Oh yeah. I think just Cade and Green, and Cade and the two Jalen's is that is tough to beat, man. That's gonna be really tough. And as as good as Melo and Ant are, I just don't see them defending those guys or scoring enough, frankly. But yeah, I think if that's the core of your team there, Cade and the two Jalen's, then I think that's a pretty imposing squad.
That's pretty good. If they played a 7-game series,
I mean, I would say it definitely wouldn't be a sweep. I mean, all these guys are so young that they're just inevitably going to be high variance players.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were run it today, I have more 2021 guys on my roster than 2020 guys. So the 2020 guys would be, having the benefit of a year of NBA physical basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I still like my guys to take them, but it just wouldn't be an easy series. So I would say it'd be a 6-game series.
Does it change at all if you swap Williams for Kuminga on your team?
I think it does, actually. I think it does. I
Mhm.
think in this hypothetical of rolling out the basketball today, I do think that Williams brings a lot more to a lot of stability to that team, to my squad. So if I were
Mhm.
to throw Kuminga in there, I think it's a little bit more of a crapshoot just because he's such a high variance player. Like I could see
Yeah.
him, doing some posterizing dunks on guys, and then the next three defensive possessions just like looking off the court and being completely aloof and like getting his defender a clean backdoor break to the basket. So it's just he's probably one of the biggest wild cards
Mhm.
out of the players that we've discussed with the just the highest variance between his highest highs and lowest lows.
Mhm.
And so I think today, not that he hurts your team, but it just doesn't bring that stability to the team today.
Yeah, so maybe this is a 7-game series now?
Oh yeah, it's a much closer series.
But your squad still wins.
I still like my squad. Yeah.
All right, well, that is another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Be sure to tune in wherever you get your podcast. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Epino, EPINO, or at Oakland Warriors. Check us out at oaklandwarriors.com and be sure to check out Jose's site, GetRopa, GETROPPA.com for some dope shirts. The Oakland Warriors podcast is produced by National Film Society and is part of the Basketball Podcast Network. That's it. Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paul Amardo for production support. See you next time, and go Dubs.